Hello, beautiful people. Yes, I am talking to you. Are you ready to feel confident AF, free from the expectations and opinions of others, and create ultimate self-trust in who you are, what you say, and how you show up in every part of your life? If you answered a hell yes, I am, I guarantee this episode will empower you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. It's time for you to strut your stuff, express yourself with freedom, and fully embrace every freaking fabulous part of you. Let's dive in. Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome to another episode of Road to Radical Visibility. If you have been finding yourself in a self-sabotage cycle, then this episode is for you. Because what I'm going to be talking about today is self-sabotage and how you can stop it and be free for reals. Not just where you keep trying to convince in your mind, like, no, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to work out today. No, I'm going to eat right today. No, I'm going to do this thing, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do this. And you find yourself in your mind going around and around and around. And you're trying to convince yourself not to do something or to do something. And you find yourself feeling like a failure because as much as you want to do it, you don't end up doing it. As much as you don't want to do it, you still end up doing it. And it just feels like you're always on the same cycle. You're finding yourself feeling the way that you felt before, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Or maybe you recognize the self-sabotage and you're like, well, I never thought I'd be back here again, but here I am learning the lesson over again. And you know, they say that you keep learning the same lesson until you've really learned it. Well, we don't have to keep doing it. You don't have to keep doing it. And this episode is going to be the episode for you. We're going to talk about sabotage interrupters and what it really takes for these to be effective. And I can't wait to share it with you. Again, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm Rachel Freemon Sowers, also known as the Breakthrough Bitch, because I am passionate about helping people in the LGBTQ plus and female communities break through the social constructs, opinions, and expectations of others and really learn how to live their life exactly the way that they want to without shame or guilt. And you know, if you've hung out here for very long, it is about being 100% yourself, 100% of the time with no shame or guilt. Let's dive into this topic. Okay, this is a big one. And I did this for a group of women a couple of weeks ago now, and they loved it. So we are going to have a mini visualization in this podcast episode or in the YouTube episode, whichever one you're listening to or watching. And I can't wait to do that with you because it really solidifies. So if you have been someone that struggles with actually, I guess, doing what you want to do, and I don't mean like I want to go to the grocery store, I want that, but really truly knowing that I want to be this kind of person in the world. I want to interact in this way. So a really easy example that I talk about quite often is my health journey. You know, I've been in health for a really long time. I taught exercise classes. You know, I've rode in the AIDS life cycle. I've done other century rides. Like I've done a lot of things. However, for a couple of years, actually more than a couple of years, I had another hip replacement. My health went downwards and I kept on saying, okay, I'm going to change my eating habits. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this thing. And I would get it all lined out. And then like 3-4 days, maybe 2 weeks go by, and then I'm falling off because there was one thing that was missing from that project, from that goal. There was one thing missing from the equation. And what we're going to talk about today is the thing that's missing from the equation. When we try and do things only from the mind, we forget that the body is, well, in my case, you know, this is like 1/8 of my body. The body is the rest of me. And I forget that, right? We try and be cognitive. This is why it's really important when we're talking about mindset. That mindset is successful when the body and the mind work together. There has to be an emotional shift. when there is an emotional charge to anything that happens, there gets to be an emotional attachment to whatever the phrase is, whatever the thing is. I was also out to breakfast recently with someone, and I cleaned my whole plate. I'm not ashamed of it. Like, I cleaned my whole plate. But my friend sitting next to me said, she's like, "Oh, the clean plate club." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, when you were little and like you either clean up your plate or whether you're wasting food, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to sneeze. That food could go to starving children in Africa or whatever. Like, you're being wasteful if you don't eat your whole plate." And I was actually able to say, like, no, I was just hungry and I wanted all of it. And so that's the way it was. But I had that too. There's an emotional attachment to that phrase. There's an emotional attachment to someone cleaning their plate. So it's just not like, oh, I'm going to leave this here or I'm not going to eat this or whatever. We have to recognize the emotion and move through that emotion and release it from the thing. We have to unattach it. And that's what's missing. And that doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the body. The emotional attachment releases in the body because all those times, and I lived in quite a lot of poverty. When I was small, we didn't have a lot of money. We lived out in the country. We ate a whole bunch of vegetables. We got some like government cheese and flour and stuff like that. But the majority of the time, we had very little to eat. And so it was all about not wasting. And that was really great. But there's an emotional attachment to some of my experiences when I was young. And that emotional attachment needs to be healed. And the part of me that believes that if I do a certain thing, something bad will happen, that also needs to be healed. So how does that deal with self-sabotage? Well, you can see the cycle. If you keep just saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and you're not able to take time. So many people I help do not know how to take time for themselves. They don't know how to attend to themselves. And if you are one of those people that's like, I don't know what I need, or I know what my path is, but I'm not sure how to get there. What do I need to do? How do I listen to the truest part of me? Check out last week's episode. It's really good and it will help you learn that. It's about these 5 aha moments I had while I had COVID that literally changed my life. And that has shifted so many things for me. But when we're talking about self-sabotage, we find ourselves feeling the same way and thinking like, I thought I learned this lesson. I thought I was done with this. And there's these levels that we need to come up with. But if you're someone that's stuck in the self-sabotage cycle, what I want to encourage you to do is create sabotage interrupters. Okay, so how do you do that? We do it by accessing subconscious. We do it by acknowledging that our minds are not the things that really rules our lives. Now, there's a lot of controversy about this. Everyone can think different ways. It's totally cool. For me, how I view it is, and how I help my clients view it is that the body is the primal thing. Like if you get in a car accident or whatever, or you're in danger in some way, the body kicks in and does the thing. It's just an automatic. So when we don't acknowledge the body and we just start trying to think through things and we don't recognize what the struggle is, the trauma that I was talking about earlier, or the emotional attachment to a childhood of poverty that I experienced, is a trauma. My body doesn't forget the trauma. It's stored in here to keep myself safe. And I did also another video on how generational trauma keeps affecting us. So my great-grandmother passed down trauma to my grandmother, that then passed down the trauma of my great-grandmother, my grandmother, to my mother. And then my mother passed it on to me. So I have my great-grandmother and further back, right? This goes on further. And then I have like 4 generations of trauma in my body that deal with poverty, that deal with sexual assault, that deal with saying, I have to do these things to keep safe. Though the body knows that. What we need to do is retrain the body. And this is where these self-sabotage interrupters come in and how we do it. We need to retrain the body. We need to create new neurological pathways by accessing subconscious. The way that I help my clients access subconscious is through visualization and we do it through music, we do it through movement. There's some other things that we do things through. But what I'm going to teach you today about creating a sabotage interrupter is going to be the combination of these things, because this is the piece that's missing. It's not just a mindset issue. It's not just change your mindset. If it was just change your mindset, every single entrepreneur that I know would be making the amount of money they actually want to be making. Every single person that wanted to get more healthy would be getting more healthy with very little resistance. Every single person that wanted to move on from their old job and really find something that was more satisfying would just automatically do it. The emotions are the things that are captured in the body, and we need to figure out how to release those and rewire the nervous system and say, I'm safe being safe in essence. So I don't have to return back to the old pattern. I don't have to re-enter in. The other thing about patterns that we need to recognize in self-sabotage is that there's parts of us, and I talk about this a lot, and I'm going to be talking about it even more in future episodes and in a group coaching / membership program that I'm creating, is that there's these parts of ourselves that are created to keep us safe. And then there's the truest self that's been covered up. So we take on the identity of these other parts of us. And then we say, well, I have to do this thing in order to feel safe. So the mind does it, the body does it, and then you're back into the old pattern. And what we want to be able to say is, I see you, I hear that this is a struggle and that you're afraid. And I, the truest self, knows what to do, and I have your back. These parts of us need to know that the truest self is now awake and is just involved and present, right? Okay, so what do you need to do? Or I'm going to walk you through a process for you to create a sabotage interrupter in this episode. All right, so here's the first thing. I want you to identify your 3 top reoccurring patterns. Identify your 3 top reoccurring patterns. Get those listed out and do them like the 3 top, and then I want you to choose one. Choose one of the patterns that is the most present, that happens the most often. So it could be, I want to say no to doing this other thing when I'm tired, or I want to say no when I'm tired. I want to rest when I'm tired. I don't want to feel like I have to drink to belong. I don't know. There's all different things. Even if you're going into the holidays, right? This is the perfect thing for the holidays. So identify your 3 top reoccurring patterns. Okay. The beauty of this is that they're only patterns. Just because you re-enter into a pattern doesn't mean you're not strong enough, not smart enough, or you're not good enough. That's not what it means at all. We remove the judgment from these patterns. It's a pattern. That's it. It's just a pattern. We're going to help heal these emotions. Now, I want you to take a moment, and you can close your eyes or you can look down, and I want you to tap into the truest self. Now, the truest self is the part of you that it can be like your intuition. I call it true self, or the wise one within. It's that part of you that you absolutely know, or you've experienced a knowing, a confidence. So one way, if you can't tap into it immediately, is think of the last time you felt really confident about a decision. Think about the last time when you knew what you knew, and there was no doubt. So think about that time. And I want you to connect with that energy within you. That's the truest self. That's the intuition. That's the wise one within. They know. And I want you to ask the wise one within you, the truest self, what can I do to remind myself to not enter into this pattern? What can I pay attention to that I'm entering the pattern? What do I need to not enter into this pattern again? Okay. So, if this has been a struggle for you, continue to practice this. Remember a time that you were confident that you knew. Whenever that time was, tap into that feeling in yourself. Go to that place within yourself, the knowing place, the truest self, the wise one within. This is the third thing. We're going to take that answer and we're going to ground it with the truest self. And what we're going to do is we're going to be placing like an anchor. What I'd love for you to do is I would just want you to go back into that space, that knowing space, closing your eyes. And if your mind's going, that's okay. Just let your mind come. Let those thoughts come. Let them go. It's like a reader board at a sports event. They just keep going. You're focused in on the knowing. You feel calm and grounded in this spot. And then I want you to picture yourself knowing this thing. Give yourself a moment to feel grounded. And I want you to place an anchor. So the anchor can be anything. Maybe it's a beautiful rock that's painted and you're going to put it in this spot. Or maybe it's like a spike, like a tent spike that you're putting into the ground as a marker to know that you can return here. This feeling of knowing, you're able to return to the feeling of knowing. You know that this is the exact right thing for you to do. If you're struggling to not know if it's the exact right thing, I want you to trust yourself as much as you can right now. Remember incorporating, bringing up that feeling of confidence, that feeling of knowing. And then I want you, once you've been in this spot, you clearly see the anchor, whatever it is. You're grounded here. You can return here at any time. Just take one nice deep breath, inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And open your eyes. Okay, so we've created an anchor. We've identified the pattern. We've created an anchor of knowing. We return back to this spot when we need to know anything. Now, I want you from the answer, like what will remind me, the next step is that we're going to create something that you can do in multiple circumstances. So oftentimes I can say this to myself, right? I can say, like when I was training for the A's ride, I don't really want to go get on my bike and ride 40 miles again today. Like when I was training. And instead of that, it's like, oh no, this is what I'm going to say to myself. This is in honor of my dad. This is me honoring him in a way that only I can. This is how I feel when I'm on the bike, feeling connected to myself and to him, right? So you're going to come up with multiple things, probably 2 or 3, 4 maybe at the most, things you can say. What is something you can do? Is there a physical action where you can transfer the energy? So a lot of times if I'm finding myself really struggling with focus, I will get up out of my chair and I will go and do something or move my body. I'll listen to a song. Like there's multiple things I can do to create the sabotage interrupter. Oftentimes people say to me, Rachel, how do you do all of the things? Well, I have a tool belt like that's 3 deep and I just whip these things out because they're all tools and skills that work for me. And this is what we're doing with this. So I would love to hear if you are watching this on, the YouTube channel, put down below, what are the things that you're coming up with? I want to hear it. Remembering that when we connect in this way, we build this different kind of community, this empowering community. If you're listening to the podcast, DM me. DM me on my Facebook, on my IG. Tell me what's hitting you. Tell me what you're loving about it. What are you coming up with? These are specific to you. The beauty of them being specific to you is that it resonates with you. Being 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed, is easy for me to remember because it's mine. It's something that makes sense to me. Okay, so you're going to take all of those things. You're going to write them down. You can put them in the notes function of your phone. You can write them down on a piece of paper. But it's important to write these things down so you can revisit them. All right, now we're going to do another quick visualization. So what I'd like you to do is make sure your feet are flat on the floor. You're touching the ground. Just feel grounded. You can lie down too. Like if you're lying down, that's fine. But just feel connected. You feel your bum in the chair, how your sit bones are feeling. And just take one inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth, nice and slow, dropping the shoulders. Relax the jaw. Okay. Now what I would like for you to do is I want you to picture yourself in a situation that you would typically enter into the old pattern. I want you to feel and see yourself entering into that old pattern. And then I would love for you to use one of the things that you came up with. And as you use this thing that only belongs to you, that's specific to you, that is personal to you, as you use this thing, everything begins to shift. You turn yourself around, you see a new way, and you go into the way that you want to go. If something keeps drawing you back to the pattern, use the skill again, and you see yourself being free of this. It's almost like the chains drop off you. You're no longer captive in this moment. You can move. Your breath is easy. Maybe you get a smile on your face. Maybe you start crying because it's such a huge relief to finally be free of it. And you see yourself enjoying, doing, being the exact way that you want to, experiencing your life exactly the way that you want to. I want you to soak up that feeling in every single cell of your body. Allowing yourself to feel relief, allowing yourself to feel joy, allowing yourself to feel ease. Allowing yourself to be the truest part of you right now. Just sit in this for just one more minute. If your mind is racing, come back to this moment, come back to that feeling of calm, come back to that feeling of confidence, of knowing, of trust. This is what I do. You see yourself going towards the pattern, you use the sabotage interrupter, and you turn the other way. You say no thank you with grace and with self-love, with understanding and compassion. Knowing that you can return to this spot at any given moment, you can have this feeling at any time when you use this sabotage interrupter. This self-sabotaging interrupter will create this success for you. You know it. It's already done it. Expressing gratitude for this moment, taking one deep breath, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, and opening your eyes when you're ready. So it's different doing this in a recording in this kind of format because I can't have immediate feedback, but I seriously, my friends, I would love to hear your feedback on what that was like for you. You can send me a DM. This is so powerful because we need to remember that we tell the brain what is real. We tell the brain how we want to be being. And in the fact that we're always trying to control, it's almost false control. It's like we squeeze so hard, there's nothing left. But if in these moments you can open yourself up to seeing the pattern, to noticing it, to using your own personalized self-sabotage interrupter, and then moving away from that, not in fear or scarcity, but in saying, I no longer need that. That no longer creates safety for me. This is no longer needed for joy, for any of it. I feel that in this other area. We begin to decrease the nervous system's response, the sympathetic nervous system's response to this flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. We begin to do that through the subconscious. We tell the reticular activation system in the base of the brain what we're focusing on. All of these things create this mind-body connection. You feel release. I mean, just in releasing your jaw, what does it feel like to not have tense all the time? These are experiences that are done and that are reflections of our ability to interrupt the self-sabotaging patterns without judgment. Now, if after this you go and do the thing and re-enter in the pattern, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. These are patterns. It takes practice. This is not a one-time and you're done. It's not. I've worked on this for several years. And it is through the practice. It's not major all the time, but it's through this practice that freedom is created. It's the freedom to be 100% yourself 100% of the time, instead of not sticking up for yourself, instead of not advocating for yourself. I was in a situation and someone was saying, they're inviting these people over and these women to sit at the table. And in that moment, I said, I have a choice. I can either say I want to sit at the table with them, or ask myself to be invited to that table, because I want to go. I want to be a part of that. And the fact of the matter is that I then in that moment said, independent of all the other women that were standing around of me, I said, I'd love to have a seat at that table. And she's like, okay. It's us being able to do that, especially in the LGBTQ plus female and marginalized communities. It's not easy. There's a ton of trauma. There's a ton of social constructs. There's a ton of, for me and people I know, religious trauma. But it's us trusting ourselves in this new way that creates this safety, that ends the actual pattern, ends the need to return back. All right. So I'd love to hear what you thought about this. I'd love to hear if you're using your sabotage interrupters, what your sabotage interrupter was. And I'd love for you to release this. If you have questions, if you're like, Rachel, I'm not getting this, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. You can put a comment in the YouTube comments below, or you can DM me if you're listening to this podcast. You're like, I want that freedom. I want the freedom. I don't want to carry this around with me. I don't want to keep entering into old patterns. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Whew. Okay. Got to roll my neck here for those of you listening to the podcast. I would encourage you to get up, just move around, do a little shake with your hands. Allow yourself to have this stuff sink in. Allow yourself to attend to you, and allow yourself to know that this absolutely can free you. All right, my beautiful friend, I'm going to end this episode here. I'll end it like I end every single one of them. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within you. I will see you all in the next road to radical visibility. Until then, bye. Hold up, don't go yet. If this episode inspired you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed, even just that little bit more, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm here, and I know you are too, to make a positive impact in the world. So don't forget to share the love. And if you were left wanting more of this type of kick-ass content, then don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. Until next time, make sure to stay true and be you. Until then, bye.